Hey everybody, it's Sean from Low Code Approach. Thanks everybody for, all the amazing suggestions that we had all year and guests to talk to and just topics to cover. We had a blast with that. We can't wait to do more, and we need your help with more topics at aka.ms/ low code topic request. We also need your help with ratings and reviews on whatever platform you use to get your podcasts. So please drop a rating, drop a like, and follow us on LinkedIn at the Low Code Approach LinkedIn group. Can't wait to see you there. Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of Low Code Approach. I'm Sean Feeney, a Senior Product Marketing Manager on the Power Platform team. Now, right now is when I hand the mic over to Wendy, but Wendy's not here. She's on a bacon shopping bonanza at the moment. But what's great is that she's bringing it for all of us. So that's really cool of her, and I appreciate that. And then typically we'd go over to Jocelyn in Wendy's absence, but Jocelyn's not here either. She recently, and congratulations to Jocelyn, got promoted to senior. And so she caught wind of senior discounts over at restaurants and is for some reason trying to get them. Good luck to you, Jocelyn. Good luck. But with her not being here, we still always have our trusty third host.
That is I, Ken Aguilar. Oh, and Sean, I believe she's using her senior discounts on Chicago-style pizza because she has realized that is now superior. Sean, who do we have with us today?
In her absence, you drop a bomb like that. Okay. So luckily, to bring us back to earth, to ground us, if you will, we have Thomas Abel, Director, Power Platform, Microsoft Copilot Studio, Director of Marketing. Thomas, I'm sorry, I was blown away by Ken's recent announcement. How are you doing, Thomas?
I'm doing well. I don't have all the context here, but we were in Chicago for a night and we did get Chicago deep dish pizza and it was good.
Yeah, well, Jocelyn and myself are both originally from New York, and so we've got this ongoing friction between Chicago deep dish pizza, which is a casserole, and then New York style pizza, which is a celebrated icon in the culinary universe. Anyway, we'll go back onto our original conversation. Why is Thomas here? Well, we're going to be talking about Microsoft Copilot Studio. And unless you've been living under a rock, you are somewhat aware of what Microsoft Copilot Studio is. But what you might not be aware of is all the recent announcements that are continuously going on. No longer are we waiting for these tier one events like Build and Ignite to make announcements for Copilot Studio. They're happening all the time. And to get us on a level set right now, we got Thomas with us. Thomas, can you tell us, high level, what are some of the recent announcements that came out for Microsoft Copilot Studio?
I mean, you're right, by the way. Like, it's kept us very busy. This space moves really, really fast. And we've also just changed our approach to things. We internally say that, our job is kind of delivering quote unquote magic every 6 to 8 weeks. And this started probably back in September when we first introduced agents and what were Microsoft's approach to agents. And then in October, we started talking about autonomous agents where we showcased some of the D365 ones. Then we headed into Ignite in November. And then we took a reprieve of a couple weeks for the holidays. And we came right back and started talking about Copilot Chat in January. I can just promise that 6 to 8 week pace is going to continue as we go, which if you're doing your math mentally means we're doing more stuff in March here. And then we're heading straight into
Yeah, no spoilers, right? But yes, there's going to be a continuous amount of new news for Microsoft Copilot Studio and agents just all across Microsoft. It's pretty incredible. So, given all these new announcements and some of the highlights that you provided for us over the kind of like that roundup, that means that you're seeing a lot of new use cases for agents, right? From simple conversational agents all the way to more complex, autonomous, task-based agents. What are you seeing out in your conversations? Because I know you're talking to lots of people on about these things.
So there's a couple different ways to kind of slice the pie here. The first is what the agents do themselves. So we at Microsoft take a fairly broad definition of what is an agent. We think that agents are not exclusively reasoning and autonomous. In fact, there's a lot of value that can be delivered in using agents to do simpler things as well. And so we kind of think of this spectrum of simple, what we would call prompt and response or knowledge grounded agents that are really designed to take your business data and help answer questions on it, help, use that grounding in order to help the LLM to act and respond to your prompt in a responsible way. That can get more advanced when you start connecting agents into other line of business systems and you give them the ability to take action. And so we call those like task-based agents, ones where you can not just ask to summarize something, but you can say, okay, based off that information, go take some action for me. And that's really powerful because you're starting to break down these silos of line of business systems. You don't have to go log into your back end line of business system in order to go make a change. The agent can go do that for you and you can interact with it in a natural language experience. And then you start getting in the most advanced where actually you don't even need a human involved in it, where these are running in the background, acting independently, but they're following a generalized goal. And with Copilot Studio, we support all of that. We support that spectrum. And one of the coolest things I think when I talk with customers is many IT leaders, they're starting by saying, oh, I want to build that agent that is going to
Mm.
solve everything for my company. And the reality is, there's a lot of business problems in every single company. There's a lot of business problems probably in your day life, Sean. You can break down into lots of smaller agents. And that means you're going to not need to apply all the power to every single agent. You're going to mix and match what you need. And so having that flexibility is super valuable.
Thomas, I keep getting this question over and over from customers. It's a very simple one for you to answer. What is a declarative agent? You've just named all these different terms, and I keep getting this over and over. So, what is a declarative agent?
Yes, we're shifting over to like the technical how do they work? But essentially at Microsoft, we have a bunch of different pieces of technology here, and Copilot Studio pulls them together and creates the agent system with different components. A declarative agent is a technical term I would use, or a technical brand, to describe an agent that is using the Microsoft 365 Copilot orchestration engine. So you're actually using the same core that we use with Microsoft 365 Copilot, the same thing that is empowering Copilot chat, and you're applying it to your specified business problem. And so that means that you're getting some consistency in how things behave. You're also a little bit less powerful in terms of the customization you can do because you're using a predefined core. And we compare that to the other term you might use, which is a custom agent or a custom engine agent.
Exactly. Yes.
Basically, the simplest way to think about this is actually there's kind of three categories. And I know I only said two words there. So let me break it down. The first is that declarative agents are using the Microsoft 365 Copilot Orchestrator. Then you have Copilot Studio custom engine agents, where you are using a customized orchestrator, a singular one. We call it the custom engine, but it's actually the custom engine versus a custom engine. And that is where we add a bunch more features you might need in order to do B2C engagements, in order to add triggers, add our full set of Power Platform connectors and actions in order to enable that agent to do more. It's basically a more complex, advanced version. And then, of course, you can always go over into Azure and build your own orchestration and prompt flow and memory system. And that's going to be a truly any custom engine. And you can name that thing yourself. You pick the name for that.
So, you said a keyword for me. You said B2C,
Yeah.
right? So, let's maybe dive into the difference between B2C, B2B. What I hear and what we see from customers, many times is that they really sometimes only know of agents as being things that are help desk like agents, or hey, I'm calling into a call center and there's an automated response, like that's an agent. Can you, maybe describe B2C, B2B and how those differ and how maybe a customer can utilize both?
Yeah, absolutely. And people are using both, just to be clear. Like, we think more broadly that agents address business processes, and business processes span all of your boundaries, whether that's working with your customers, working with your suppliers, other businesses, or working with your employees. Like, everything at the end of the day. And what I love is, like, we're part of Power Platform. You can boil most things down to a workflow. In much the same way, you can boil most solutions down into an agent as we think about the technology that we're applying here. And so, in a B2E circumstance, we think a lot of those internal processes, accessing systems of data, doing things that today employees are having to do manually. In B2C, it's really about scale and flexibility, where in the kind of old school world of chatbots, a maker would have to manually program every single prompt and response. You would have to build really complex topic flows where you were thinking about every single predefined question a user might ask, and then you were having to code in a predetermined answer. When you start applying generative technologies to that, we're essentially giving makers flexibility. Instead of having to define specific words and responses, now you're able to say, hey, look for a general theme and use these knowledge sources to develop an answer on the fly. And that's super powerful because you can now take in the perpetuity of time, you would be able to recreate that LLM powered agent manually, but it's going to take a lot of time and effort to program every single if then statement. With these LLMs as a maker, you're able to scale really quickly because you don't have to do all of those individual steps. And the LLM will also be more contextual then in its responses because you're feeding it in more context in order to be able to respond effectively.
Thomas, we've been talking a ton about Microsoft Copilot Studio and what that means, and rightfully so. I mean, that's your world. However, your world has also taken on Copilot Chat. Can you explain to Ken and I and our listeners and everyone in the world what's
Yeah.
Copilot Chat and why would I use that over Microsoft
Yeah.
Copilot Studio, or when do I actually make the leap from one tool to the other?
Yeah, let me take a step back for a second, actually. And I promise I will get to Copilot Chat, but this is super important foundation of how Microsoft is thinking about this ecosystem. We believe that there is a Copilot for every single person. There is a personal assistant that is going to help you get more work done. And we also believe that agents will help with every single business process. Those are two different things that share a bunch of underlying technology, but their purpose and their intent are very different. In that world of having a copilot for every person, we have some options for what that copilot could be. We have Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is our $30 per user per month offering that provides AI across Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Copilot chat inside of your work data, all of those great things that you've seen, Teams and meeting recaps, etc. But in January, we also launched a free version of Copilot for work experiences called Copilot Chat. And that is essentially two different ways that you can empower everyone in your organization to start using AI as their personal assistant. Where that's relevant to the other half of the world with agents is that we now have a UI for anyone to start interacting with agents. I think of Copilot Chat and M365 Copilot as an amazing distribution vehicle for you as a Power Platform maker who's building an awesome agent for employees to distribute your agent in a common way to everyone in your organization, whether they're licensed with that $30 per user per month SKU or not. And that's super powerful because when I think of adoption and change management for your users, that the biggest hurdle is usually, oh, I have different ways to do the same thing in different places. Now, whether you're a frontline worker that needs to access, a time card agent that's doing report, you can ask to fill in a time card for you, or you're, the CEO that's licensed with M365 Copilot, you're gonna have the same experience in accessing that agent. And so, like, I think of it as a distribution vehicle. Copilot Chat opens the door that when you are building these agents, they're relevant to your entire organization through that single UI for AI.
Love it. Ken, any questions on that? Because I know with great power comes great responsibility. And those are usually the segues into your favorite topics.
I'm not even going to jump into that just yet, Sean, because I have more questions about chat right now. And that is, when we hear the word chat, we generally think of it as somewhat like chat GPT, right? Because that's a very sort of common, like I'll even call it the Google now of AI, right? We don't say, I'm going to go search something. I'm going to go Google something. So whenever we think about these new agents, folks generally say chat GPT, even though they may be talking about Copilot or whatever it may be. So the question here, is it just simply when we say chat, oh, answer and response, a very fancy search engine? What else can it do?
Yeah, so as I said before, we kind of have two different levels of what is that Copilot experience for work. The first is M365 Copilot, which is have taking a bunch of different AI experiences across the suite of Microsoft 365, but one of the core ones is the business chat, or what we call now just the chat experience. And with your $30 per user per month SKU, we enable that chat to reason over the entire company semantic index and any data you've connected into the index through graph connectors in order to be able to answer whatever questions you have using relevant information from throughout your company. It is pretty darn powerful when you can contextualize what you're trying to do in all of the knowledge of your peers and coworkers and the collective knowledge of the billions of files that are being created and stored in SharePoint and emails that are being sent and chat messages. That said, we also know that there's a ton of value in web grounding. Like that is mostly what ChatGPT is today. And so we also offer the ability to use chat in a purely web grounded context where you are basing it off of the inherent knowledge of the LLM and what grounding it can pull from publicly available sources in the web. That web grounded only portion is what we also make available for free in a secure enterprise data protection guaranteed environment as part of Copilot Chat as a standalone free product. And then for both of those, we enable you to go build the agents that your organization needs using Copilot Studio. And so what I've actually started seeing is organizations that go, hey, I have a pretty specific use case. I recognize that my employees today might be using ChatGPT and I don't have any governance over them. And so I want to bring that into my tenant security boundary and have Microsoft Enterprise Data Protection off of the queries that are being asked, the files that are being uploaded, etc. And so I'm going to move to Copilot Chat, the free version for all my employees. But I have some specific business processes that I'm going to build as agents that I'm going to deploy into Copilot Chat. And so it could be as simple as, hey, this is the, HR policy agent where if you have a question, start here and we'll try and answer your question using general knowledge. And if we need to direct you to a human, we'll take care of that. It could be a more complex agent. One agent internally at Microsoft that my own team has been using quite a bit is whenever we have a public announcement or blog post or Twitter post or LinkedIn post, we created an agent that looks at our internal marketing and legal guidelines of what we're allowed to say and how we say it. And that agent reviews every single post that we want to go make and provides feedback on how we improve it. That's a super valuable use case. It doesn't require a Microsoft 365 Copilot as a $30 per user per month SKU, but it is saving a day of review on every single post we want to make. That's a great combination of free Copilot chat with powerful agents that address business process scenarios.
One, I love that. Thank you for explaining that. Two, you said all the keywords that I needed, right, to now jump into security, governance, and so on. As Sean said, with great power comes great responsibility. Thank you for channeling Uncle Ben. Sean, now, Thomas, you talked about all of the things Copilot has access to. What if I want to restrict, limit, put guardrails around those things?
Yeah.
How do I do that? And what are some of the capabilities that are within our ecosystem that enable businesses to,
Yeah.
use the tool responsibly?
So two different things here. Let me start actually by saying we could talk for hours on this one. I'll zero in on agents specifically. So let me set aside that in general, M365 Copilot, it respects all of the user permissions and security permissions that you set inside your tenant. But I also know that the reality is many tenants need to do some remediation. Many customers need to work through how they're setting up the right security labeling policies, document retention policies. I still have SharePoint sites from years and years ago that still exist that I need to go remediate myself. So there's a whole world over there I'm going to set to the side for a second. But let's talk about agents. The way you build agents in Copilot Studio is inherently building from nothing. And I think that's super important because in the context of an agent, it is a container. You are teaching it knowledge, you are teaching it skills, you are choosing whether to give it reasoning capabilities. And so in many ways, you start from nothing and you can decide how much you give it. So there's a couple different layers to that, but you can give it specific SharePoint sites. And what's great about being in using the semantic index in order to access those sites is that we carry all of those permissions through into that agent. So as an example, if you share an agent in a group chat and that agent is grounded in knowledge that not everyone in the chat has access to, it will identify that and it will actually not respond. It will tell you as the requester, hey, this is what I would say, but I'm going to privately tell you because not everybody else is privy to that information. And so that is just part of the like inherent value of being inside of that of the Microsoft security boundary that makes it really great. Then you get into the next problem, which is governance and cost management. And I can go there. Do you want us to talk about there as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Okay. So our great friends at Gartner, they use this phrase agent sprawl. You know, basically evoking that everybody's going to create agents. There's going to be lots of them, and now IT has a challenge of managing them. And I don't disagree. Like oftentimes branded words that are meant to be scary are scary, but in many cases, yeah, we believe in a world that is going to have a lot of agents. That every person's going to have a team of agents working for them. Every business process is going to be turned into an agent, and that's a totally new IT world of how we're going to govern these things. The good news is is that we've done this before. Power Platform has done this with workflows, has done this with apps. Like
Yeah.
the world of everyone creating these and needing to manage them is actually something that if you know Power Platform well, you're well positioned to be able to navigate this new world. And Copilot Studio is built on top of Power Platform. I have a little joke that like there's the Microsoft Admin Center, and then there's Power Platform Admin Center, and we shorten those to Mac and PPAC internally. And I can always tell who's going to be worried about agent sprawl because they either know or don't know what PPAC is. They'll go, "Oh, is this in Microsoft Admin Center?" I'll go, "No, it's in Power Platform Admin Center," and that's a good thing because all the tools for environment management are there. That's a very positive thing. And usually, if I'm talking to a field person, they're like, "Oh, teach me about this new thing because I've never heard of it before." But I know many of our Power Platform friends, they're well versed in how to do this.
So much information, so much goodness. And I heard a few things that, my security minded brain keyed in on. One, you talked about the old SharePoint sites and so on. And one of the common things that we hear from customers is that, oh, well, I've built this agent and I'm getting too much information from like SharePoint, for example. Hey, listen, folks, that's not Copilot's fault. That's the permission model on SharePoint. So please, right, secure your sites, secure your data, and so on. Things along those lines. Secondly, you said that agents start from nothing. And when folks think about agents, they often think, oh, well, artificial intelligence means that it is intelligent. And it actually isn't.
Let me actually I like this because it is super intelligent, but not in the way that you think. I'll give an example of a specific feature in Copilot Studio. We call it knowledge curation. The agent is only going to act on the knowledge that you give it. But that doesn't mean the agent and Copilot Studio are stupid. In fact, Copilot Studio will identify where it is falling short in how to answer questions that users are asking it. And using a tool called knowledge curation, it will actually look across the graph, your entire semantic index, and recommend to the maker, hey, if you gave me permission to use these other files, I would be able to better answer the questions people are asking. But the maker is fully in control of that decision. And I think that's a great example of like building from nothing, but also having the intelligence to help makers make decisions that are powered by the entire knowledge that you could get from AI. It's an important balance point that we are neither stupid nor doing everything, and it's up to the maker to choose.
So you said a word that we're very familiar with in the Power Platform area, and that's maker, right? And what defines a maker.
Yep.
But when we get into Copilot Chat, are those still makers that are creating
Yeah.
those agents and chat, right? Like is if I need to know, like, hey, I'm going to start deploying agents in my organization, what are the roles that I need to identify to be successful
Yeah.
across the organization?
So we actually have two different experiences that we've enabled in order to directly address what you're getting into. We have a lightweight version of Copilot Studio, which we call the Copilot Studio Agent Builder, that is designed for any end user to use a natural language interface, a no code, not even low code, no code experience in order to build an agent. And that experience exists inside of chat. If you have used Copilot Chat or M365 Copilot in the right nav, in the rail there, you'll see that it says create an agent. And that essentially launches this lightweight version of Copilot Studio. And that's super important because there are lots of business processes that are localized and small and potentially even finite. Satya likes to say that an agent could be as simple as creating an Excel or an Excel with a macro. Like there's going to be lots of those. We use Agent Builder in a super controlled way to, I call it toddler proof, essentially make it safe that you can't do any harm there, that agents built out of Agent Builder are generally knowledge-based only agents that are prompt and response. And so they're secured very, very directly by the same controls you use to secure Copilot. Then we have another experience, which is the full Copilot Studio experience at copilotstudio.microsoft.com, which is where I see Power Platform makers going and building what they need. And that's where you get a lot more advanced capabilities. You can start publishing to other channels. You can add custom connectors, more advanced topic trees and flows that integrate a bunch of other technologies together. And so I generally think of those two tools as a very simple way to expose the power of agents to many people, building what you need, while also having a more controlled way for the most advanced agents to be built. And I'll share, like at Microsoft, Sean, you and Kenny both experienced this. Like we use those two tools as a way to govern who can create what. So everyone inside of the company can create agents using Agent Builder, that lightweight tool. And then we have a Center of Excellence team in partnership with our Microsoft IT department that are the only people that can create those fully powered Copilot Studio agents. And in fact, we have a sponsorship model where if you have a business problem, you can go work with that Center of Excellence team in order to build that agent. But it's in a bit more of a controlled setting to make sure that we build it in the right way.
Thomas, it sounds like you're actually setting yourself up for a return visit here. So
Yeah.
thank you very, very much for that. Our time is getting short here. What's next for us for Copilot Chat and everything? What's on the horizon?
Yeah. Oh, what can I say? I said at the start of this that we are on a furious pace. And so there's some things that astute listeners will be able to notice that, we've been talking about autonomous agent capabilities, and those are in public preview. Well, it's obvious that we'll get to general availability pretty soon. I think more broadly, we at Copilot Studio are trying to do two things. One is that we believe kind of our responsibility is to take all of the innovation that is happening in the AI space and make it relevant to customers. Copilot Studio is intended to take these raw primitive components that are really powerful and enable you to use them and scale quickly. In a world where there are going to be a billion agents, you are not going to be able to hand code and build each one bespoke in a pro code environment. And so how we leverage these innovative new technologies that are coming out, more powerful models, more powerful reasoning capabilities, and integrate them into a system that is easily scalable to all of your business problems. That's what we're thinking about every single day. And I think the other half of that coin is the coolest thing about AI is a lot of this is mixing old technology with new power. And so I think you'll see us blend more and more of the things that maybe are well known to you into systems that add generative AI capabilities to them. Chatbots into agents is a great example where, chatbots are not a new concept. The idea of topics and flows and prompts and responses have been around for a long time, but they took on an entirely new life when you started integrating generative AI capabilities to it. And so we kind of have this cool job of taking the most advanced stuff and bringing it in while also mixing it into some of the really powerful old school things that exist today. And I think the new output of that is really powerful as we're trying to change every single business process in every single organization.
That is awesome. Like, so much goodness on here. Also, Ken's right. You are invited back whenever. So it's like One question though that I wanna see is, do you have any tips on lowering Jack's appearance fee so we can get him back on the podcast?
I like
You
that.
you just have to act nicely. I for about 2 weeks, I was like, "I'm gonna do everything Jack does on LinkedIn. I'm gonna repost. I'm gonna, do everything." It made me realize that, being that loud and vocal and being that energetic all the time is a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot
Yes.
of work. Big props to Jack. Jack, we love you. So there's so much to learn. We'll have a ton of links in our show notes. Thomas, I hope to have you back on here every 6 to 8 weeks because there's going to be magic going on. So can't wait to cover it with you in the future. This is awesome.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for having me.